Hello everyone, Maurice here, and today I'm bringing you a meta report for Axie Infinity Origins Season 6. Now it's the late rare era. So let's just see what is going on with the rare era, and it is pretty diverse, and we have some a bit of new updates compared to the previous report, in the sense of there are the confused and summon getting up to the top, that kind of thing. So let's just jump into the report. Of course, do check out the uh, blog post if you want more details. So first of all, let's look at the database statistics. Now we have over 440,000 players now, and here's kind of the graph, and you can see on top is really very steep, right? And most of the players are more kind of in this range, and actually you can see most of the players are actually in Tiger. Of course, that's because below Tiger you actually get 20 victory points when you win, whereas when you lose, you only drop down by 10. So if you play long enough, and if you average about 50% win rate, you will get to Tiger. But of course, that's where a lot of people will be stuck at. And to get to Dragon, then it will require quite a bit more skill and also probably like better Axies. Okay, so yeah, here is basically what's happening in Challenger. At the moment, there are just slightly more than 600 players at Challenger. Of course, this number will probably increase to probably maybe even over 1,000 at the end of the era when people start pushing more. Now you can see it's still very steep, right? In the sense of the fewer than 100 players getting to above 100. Sorry, 1900-ish. I guess slightly over 100 players is getting to 1900-ish. So the rest is really below 1900. So I would say majority of the players are definitely below 1900. So okay, let's just get into the archetype usage, and this kind of gives you the idea of how the number of players are, and there are really not a lot of players at 2K plus, right? So if you look back at the graph, then you can see, right, 2K plus is really even within the top 100. There's only really a few, right, that are above there. So that's why you can see this is really just maybe 10, 20 players. And then 1900, as I said, is more about maybe the top 100 something players, and then you get to more of the 600 players and so on. So this is how kind of how you should interpret it in that sense. And the big one that I would want to talk about is definitely confused. So this color here, right? Confused definitely is only really used at near the top, and you don't really see much. Just because you do need very specific axes, but it seems to be pretty powerful and effective to, especially at the top. And the summon as well in the gray here. Also, you can see concentrated at the top. Don't really see much. Yeah, so if you really want to just look at the majority of the player base, at least at Challenger and maybe Dragon, then you can see that it's actually pretty much the same in that sense. You still see mostly the same 8 archetype that I mentioned in the previous report. So if you haven't looked at that, then do check it out. Yeah, so the lower you get, then you see a bit more Topaz, but otherwise, yeah, Topaz really not at the top 8, I must say. But yeah, so I think that's the gist of it. And the other thing I do want to talk about is the decrease in poison as you go up, and that is the same for kind of leafy and sustain as well. So you don't really see those three as much compared to the bottom. So of course, poison just very cheap, and leafy also actually just because previous season there's just so many leafy axes being bred. So yeah, a lot of people will have leafy axes. So yeah, but yeah, apparently they're not really doing as well. So let's just jump into kind of the win rate, and then see what is like a trending. So in terms of win rate, we have it here, and you can see confused here is really the one that is like mostly positive win rate, I must say, of course, except for like the relatively low end where people probably are not playing the most optimal version. But if you're really playing like at the highest level, then seems to be doing very well. And Anemone as well. Anemone is still pretty strong at the highest level. Same as Summon. Of course, Summon and actually Confuse and not many player playing those. Especially for Summon, I think only really two teams in the top 50 or something. So that's why these numbers, of course, is very skewed in the sense of they are really only played by the top players. Of course, like at the lower level, there are summons built, but obviously probably less optimal, and so it's harder to to conclude in terms of the win rate. But other than that, it's really not much. So because everything else is kind of stabilized, and like if you have a particular team with a particular power level, you kind of expect you'll get to 50% win rate. And that's most players are at playing the majority of the or top eight archetypes, I would say. The other thing I should note is at the very top, right, meaning the top 10, 20 players, then it's really about AoE, Anomaly, Triple R, Confuse, and Summon. So those are the things that you will see. Okay, then let's just jump into the matchup. And to be honest, I don't really want to go through this graph. Of course, do check out the blog post. If there are specific matchup that you want to look at for your specific team, then yeah, just take your time to pause the video or check out the blog post. And of course, different brackets is also different just because players tend to play different types of, I guess, tech for particular victory star brackets, I would say. For example, Poison, of course, the most optimal team will probably have like double Gila and stuff like that. But if you start going down, then people might not run two Gila, people might not run Vinoki or something. People might run different things basically. So that's why at the lower level things could be a bit different. Yeah, and also, of course, is the win rate is actually pretty similar for the top. For the top eight, it's pretty similar to last week. So do check out last week's meta report if you want to look more details into the top eight popular teams. Because like for this video, I'm really just going to talk about three archetypes that I do feel like is pretty viable at the top. That is not the most popular ones. Okay, and first off, we have Hot Butt. So Hot Butt teams, actually pretty similar to summons, but Hot Butt teams, of course, rely on Hot Butt to shuffle burn cards into the opponent's deck, and then basically slowing the opponents down from the second deck rotation. So basically limiting their ability to use up all the energy, while of course now it's relatively easy to get to 4 energy because of the change in the energy fragment mechanic. And so you will then have a energy advantage. And to slow down the opponent in different ways, the most common way will be to use summons, right, to basically soak up the attacks, and of course you have shields, and then you have the finisher in terms of the tiny fan. So tiny fan will be used as a finisher. So yeah, so that is for Hot Butt really. So in terms of the matchup, it's tough for AOE is the toughest matchup for Hot Butt, just because summons just get the summons just really get destroyed by the AoE attacks, and also even multi-hit attacks are very good against summons. So that is one. And the other thing is, of course, AoE ramped up pretty quickly as well. So it's just hard for Hot Butt team to really deal with, especially they have a lot of the 2 energy card, right? The Wing Horn, which just gives you so much value because Hot Butt really relies on limiting the opponent's way of efficiently using all the energy. But of course, if you have a lot of Wing Horns, then it's this opponents usually going to get a lot of values from the cards that they get. So the other thing is also Triple R as well. Triple R, not of course not as tough, but still tough for Hot Butt. Not as tough is because the summon can block the owls, right? One summon can soak up a lot of owl damage, but still it just ramps up so so much in terms of the damage, as long as summons get killed, and then when one owl hits you, it will deal 200, sometimes 300 damage. So that's why triple owl is also quite can be quite tough for Hot Butt to deal with. But hotbar is great against spikes and sandals, so just because the summons really blocks those attacks, and of course spikes relies on opponent to proc their spikes. If they don't proc their spikes, then it's a bit less effective. Of course, you always usually for this kind of team, I always run one Silence Whisper as well, or actually multiple Silence Whisper in Innocent Lamb and Tricky as well, so that it has a good matchup against poison, or at least a fair matchup against poison. Okay, so then let's talk about summon. Summon, I must say, not many people are playing it. It's pretty specific, and in this case, summon. When I say summon, I mean basically, in a way, it's kind of like hot butt without the hot butt, if you think about it that way. So it's similar to how hot butt team works, except it doesn't run hot butt. It focuses a lot more on the summons. So of course, Destiny Leaf is a must, right? On the summons, but also you have a lot of the AOE shield. So you can see basically double mint, double pincer, so that you can use the AoE shield to shield your summons as well, so that they can survive for maybe even 2 hits. And also you have a lot of leaf bug, so that when you do AoE shield, you can retain. Like of course the leaf bug give you cocoon, right? Cocoon stacks, then you get to retain the shield that you get, so you get even more value from it. And then you still have a tiny fan for the finisher kind of thing. But yeah, so this is like kind of you can have a sustained build, but with summons to soak up damage. You do have like carrots, that kind of thing, to also deal large damage at late game as well. So yeah, so that is summons. So in terms of the matchup data, I must say there's really not a lot, just because there are really only, let's say, 2 top players like really playing this, and then in a lower level, suboptimal builds, then it's really quite hard to say. But it seems to have a pretty good matchup against poison, because you have the um, Silence Whisper, and of course Tricky to get more Silence Whisper as well. So that's one, and Anemone as well, right? Because Anemone is similar to Topaz, right? Where they do one hit, all right? So the summons can basically just soak up a lot of damage, basically. So Anemone is just quite hard to go through sustained kind of build in general, just because this Anemone cards actually the power will decrease every time. So yeah, so that's the matchup. But of course, for summons, Suffolk against AoE and triple R as before, I would say. Yeah, just because AoE really just kills all the summons, so that's a bit tough. That's why at the very top, there are quite a number of AoE teams as well. Then this just makes summon a bit tough, and also triple R is also quite common at the very top, so also again making summon a bit harder. Yeah, but it's still very viable at the top. And finally, we have confused. So, or I guess a lot of people call it swirl back in the days. But yeah, so how it works really is you use the confusion eyes and the swirl. Of course, you have innocent lamb to get more confused eyes, confusion eyes. And these 2 cards basically shuffle confused cards into the opponent's or draw pile. Yeah, shuffle in the draw pile, so that when they draw the cards, then they get the confused card as opposed to the card that they want to play. So basically, the strategy is that you shuffle confused card into the opponent's draw pile, preventing the opponent from really fully utilizing all their energy. So that's making their play a lot less energy efficient, basically, right? So they can't use up all their energy, then they can't do as much. So that's basically the idea. Use basically the Nemo Tails just to ramp up faster. And of course, in the Epic era, then instead of Frail Egg, which applies weak, slowing down the opponent, then you probably run things like Energy Guru just to ramp up even faster. And yeah, so this is kind of the gist of the team. Of course, you run a Garage Room as well, so that you can get rid of the cards that opponent have retained. So really limiting the opponent's ability to use up all the energy during each turn. And actually, a lot of good matchups. Good against Leafy, Sustain, Spikes in particular, but overall, it's a pretty good matchup. Actually, at the very highest level, like the most optimized team, right? And it's also good against like triple R and AoE. Just because like it can really limit the opponent's draw, basically. It happens that Sando and Hotbutt are like the worst matchup for Confused, but they are relatively rare. Right? Sando can hit very hard, so that's one. Like Hotbutt, of course, like stopping the Confused team in drawing their confusion and swirl, right? So making them like like can't really you know do all the confuse and stuff. So yeah, so this is like a good counter. I would say this. I must say Jinx as well, probably, but you don't really see much Jinx around. And then when it can also be tough, just because they also go pretty fast as well. So because this really confused team really relies on surviving and then shuffling a lot of confused card into the opponent's draw pile. Yeah, so I scroll up here and then you can see a bit more. I guess here is probably the best, right, where you can see confused. Yeah, stuff against Sandal. Yeah, but otherwise it's actually anomaly maybe a bit, right? But you can see positive matchup pretty much across the board, so that's why it is a very good um, yeah team for climbing. And yeah, maybe we'll see Confused really getting to the top. But let's see. We still have well, I guess more than a day to go. Yeah, so that is it, I think, yeah, for this video. So good luck and have fun with the final push in the rare era. Hopefully, I would say we'll get a similar kind of diverse meta in the epic era. And yeah, I think at this point I'm quite happy with how the balancing and like the meta balancing works at this point. But having said that, I'm starting to worry that now they get to a point where okay, they are getting a balanced meta, but they really need to have some new things for the coming seasons. Just because if you're just going to repeat the same meta for the next season, then it's going to be not as fun for players who have already experienced this meta, right? So that's why I do hope that there will be new changes for the coming season, so that you don't see it's good to have a balanced meta, but yeah, once you've seen it once, you played it once, then yeah, it's a bit boring to do it again and again and again every season, right? So yeah, hopefully we'll see like parts upgrade or other kind of updates so that we see more, have new mechanics to play with. Okay, all right. I think I've talked enough for this video. So good luck, have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.